Joining us now, State Senator Fairfax Democrat Chap Petersen. Had a great session up there. Lots going on. We're happy to have him back on today. He's been so busy. Hey, Chap, great to have you, man.
John, thanks for having me. Great to be back on the show.
Chap Petersen, the man. Listen, I was so impressed yesterday when I read, and I want you to share this with our audience, you single-handedly stopped the seatbelt bill, which I liken to basically stop and for risk where you can get pulled over by a cop in Virginia if this thing passed for not doing anything, just the suspicion of not having a seatbelt on. You single-handedly stop that. You explain that to our
Sure.
audience.
Well, thank you. First of all, I don't know if I single-handedly did it because 20-some people, I think 28 people joined me in voting against it, but I did speak against it, and we did kill it literally on the 11th hour because it had passed the House. Here's the deal, John. I think your analogy to stop and frisk is very apt. This law would have given the ability of the police to pull over any car just on the suspicion that an occupant was not wearing a seatbelt. I mean, they could see a car going down the road, people in the back, people in the front, and say, I don't think that person's wearing a seatbelt. Now, how you're supposed to see that or know that when you're in a police vehicle, I have no idea. But to me, it's just a terrible policy. We limit the reasons why police can pull over civilian vehicles. I used the recollection when I was a law student. I visited my sister who was living in Moscow. It was in the Soviet Union. The Soviet Empire had fallen, and the country was under military rule. And the Army would stop cars and make people get out and search their vehicles and ask for their papers, and you would have to pay, 20 rubles to get them off your back. I mean, it was crazy. And I looked at that, and I'm like, now I understand why we have a Fourth Amendment in this country. So
Right.
I recounted that anecdote, and I spoke with some degree of passion, and we killed it.
I tell you what, it was a horrible bill. It was definitely overreach, and it was for no reason. I mean, that's
there's nobody's asking for this.
Exactly. How do you get sometimes to this stuff where you get bills that nobody asked for? Like, how does that happen?
Well, there's an interesting concept whereby you get elected and you are in the community and you're talking to voters, and then you get down to Richmond and a whole group of people that never talked to you and issues that never popped up suddenly come flooding in your door and say, well, we got to do this, we got to do that, and, primary seatbelts. I mean, if you had asked me, I would have said 10 times out of 10, no way I'm voting for that. I mean, we had other bills that were similar where people came in and said, well, you got to vote for this, and the advocates want it, and they're like, hold on, I wouldn't even asked about that during the campaign, and if so, I would have said, hell no. So, that's just part of the process. I think there were a lot of lobbying groups that, because there was new leadership and,
Right.
and new majorities, were very emboldened or entitled, whatever word you want to say, to think that somehow they got elected. And anyways,
The Senate became the backstop of reason. A lot
Yeah.
of this stuff. How would you classify that?
yeah, you know what? It's interesting, and a lot of it's because one, we're 21-19, so if you lose even one or two Democrats, that kills a bill. And two, by and large, we've been in this business a while. Most of our members have 10, 15, 20 years at a minimum of elected experience. A lot of us were on city councils and local boards. And then three, we tend to be a little bit older and tend to have more of a background in business. And so, I think a lot of the policies that the House of Delegates passed, we may have agreed on the underlying policy, but we put it in a way that it was not so offensive or in your face to business or local government. I'll give you an example. Collective bargaining, obviously a big issue with the unions.
Right.
I realize that.
Right.
The House would have mandated it. We make it local option. So if your local government says, we're willing to sit down with teachers and recognize their union, or sit down with firefighters and recognize their union, that's their local option.
Right.
But we're not going to force it down your throat.
Right.
Same thing, on some of these bills on sick leave. We had that bill that would have required mandatory sick leave for part-time employees. Well, if you've ever owned a business, you recognize that's not how businesses operate. Mm-hmm. Part-time and full-time employees are very different. One gets benefits and one does not, and that's how the IRS treats that, and that's typically how the economics work. And the House wanted to say, well, you got to give sick leave to everybody, even if they only work 8 hours a week. And then we said, no, hold on, slow down. You got to, if you're going to do this, you got to limit it to full-time employees, just like the ACA is limited.
Right.
So I wouldn't say we're more conservative or moderate. I think it's just
temperate.
Yeah,
Temperate.
We're just like, hold on, you got to work with people. You can't.
It's like
just
the adults
slam
in the room. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a great example, Senator Petersen, that you bring up, which anybody that owns a small business, and you own a bigger business than I do, but we both own businesses.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm all for sick days, right? I mean, I get it,
Right.
and to your full-time employees, and you want to be sure they're okay, but you hire part-timers for a reason. And
Right, exactly.
To give them sick leave.
You're paying them a few, they come in a few hours, but to give them sick leave is kind of nonsensical.
It's insane, and it's put forth by people that have never run a business and have no idea what they're doing. And so, yeah, you guys were temperate, I thought, in a lot of ways. And I tell you, though, I was shocked at the difference with the redistricting reform in the Senate and the House.
Right.
Like there was virtually no opposition in the Senate.
Right.
Like it went 38-2.
Right.
And in fact, there was enthusiasm for it amongst the Democrats.
Right.
And shockingly, Louise Lucas, who everybody loves. I mean, she's just a wonderful lady.
Just the queen of the Senate.
I mean, come on, she's just a queen, and she's been fighting for casinos that now passed since I've been here. And she was like an advocate of this.
Yeah, she was.
Tell us what happened.
Well, I think let me put a couple different spins on it. Those of us in the Senate, and we've been, I've been in elected office now 22 years, 18 years in the Assembly, and if a redistricting commission was going to come back and draw a district, and it would, for whatever reason, that would be the end of my career, or I'd lose, the seat I have now, I'd be fine with that. No problem with that. And I think those of us in the Senate, maybe we're on the back half of our career, and so we're at peace and with whatever happens. I'm not desperate about, oh my gosh, I got to preserve my seat, because I feel like I've already done what I wanted to do, and so I think we're less nervous about preserving our own individual destiny, maybe because we're just at a different stage in our career. That's number one. I think number two, with the Senate, you have a larger district. So you're used to talking to people that may have a different background, may have a different orientation, may have a different ethnicity. That's less of a big deal to you. There are some people that they're like, God forbid I'd have to go talk to a group that's outside of my group if we get redistricted. And, I don't understand that thinking. Or maybe I do understand it, but I just don't agree with it. Mm-hmm. And so in the Senate, we had a lot of conversations in the Democratic caucus. Not everybody was on board. I had a couple of people that are like, hey, we've fought for 20 years to get the majority. Why do we give it away? And I understand that position. Mm-hmm. My position is, you know what? This is a legacy bill, first of all. This is a chance for us to do something that people 30, 40 years from now are going to rely on and appreciate. And secondly, if we truly believe Democrats are the majority party, then what are we scared of? Just draw the line.
Exactly. Yes.
What are you scared about?
Yes. That's the argument. Look, I'm a Republican. I was for this when the Republicans had 63 seats, okay? Because it's the right thing to do. And I remember saying the same thing to Bill Howe. What are you afraid of if you've got 63 seats?
Right.
What are you afraid of? That you might have 58 or 70? Who knows? Who cares? Look, the Republicans are not going to win in 2021 anyway. They're going to get beat again. So they have no party. They don't stand for anything. I don't even know what they're doing. So you guys are going to win anyway. Why not do the right thing and make these districts make sense for people? And you're also spot on when you call it a legacy bill. But you're right. What are you afraid of?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. No. It was a good bill. The commission itself, would I have set it up that way? No. But you know what? The bottom line was George Barker and Saslaw, they put that together. They got that passed through the Senate, and that's what will go to the voters. It'll be basically a mix of legislative and non-legislative citizens. But the key is it's bipartisan. You've got reps from both parties, and you're not going to have one side getting jerked over for to maximize the other side's power. And that will make it very different from every other redistricting we've had since, 1776.
Well, Dick Saslow, the Godfather, is 80 years old.
Yeah, so he's not worried about running for re-election.
Not running for re-election. George Barker's 77.
Yeah.
I mean, so, look, you combine their ages, it's 157 years or something.
Right.
I mean, these guys, to me, if they get behind something with that level of maturity and experience, I'm going to stand up and hear what they have to say. All right, let's get to, I know you've been fighting this a long time, marijuana decriminalization. What's your view?
Okay, well, we kind of took baby steps. We did have a decrim bill, which we did pass. I did vote for it, John. And this is not legalization, so don't say I'm being inconsistent, because it basically keeps civil penalties for marijuana use. There's still a bunch of issues we need to work out that we're going to have to do in 2021, which is, is marijuana use, is it penalty for smoking a cigarette now more serious than smoking a joint? What about underage drinking? I mean, we've got to find a way to kind of find some proportionality here between these, all these quote-unquote underage things. Marijuana use or possession in and of itself will be decriminalized. It will still be a civil penalty. Dealing it will still be, depending on the amount of that you have, a misdemeanor or a felony. So if you're out dealing without a license, you can still get charged with a felony. So it reflects what is, I would say, the popular will that possession of marijuana should not be a jailable offense. It will no longer be a misdemeanor. It will be a civil penalty. I agree with that. We weren't there 20 years ago. We're there now. The issue of legalization and having the state sell it and advertise it, like Colorado or California, I do not think there's a majority for that in Virginia. I may be wrong. That bill may be coming along in the next few years. Lord knows we did everything else this year, but we did not do that.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. I'm with State Senator, Democrat Chap Petersen, veteran lawmaker from Fairfax. Chap, let's get to driver cards for immigrants. Your buddy Scott Servell.
Right.
Very passionate on this. There's not a lot of things. Scott and I agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some things. I was not in favor of this, but I do have to say he made a compelling argument. What say you?
Well, take the clock back to 2001, prior to September 11th. Anyone who was residing in Virginia could get a driver's license. You didn't need to show proof of citizenship. You didn't need to show really anything other than you were living here and you had a car and you could drive the car. And we changed that law after 9/11 because we had become so basically loose in issuing licenses, and we said, no, you have to be here legally. And that meant that thousands and thousands of people that live and work in Northern Virginia suddenly lost the right to drive legally. Now, you can make the argument, we can talk for hours about, well, they're here, they shouldn't be here, they're taking jobs away from people, but as you know, the labor market in Northern Virginia, there's just not enough people up here for all the work. So that left a situation that we had people either driving illegally or taking the bus or walking or doing whatever. And we had a huge population of people that were not able to access licenses. Then the question became, well, do we go back to how it was pre-2001, that if you're here, you can show proof of residency, forget the legal, just proof of residency, and you can drive and you can get insurance, that you should have a license. Mm-hmm. Or the middle ground was the driver's privilege card, which is not a license. You can't use it to get on planes. You can't use it as a proof of ID, but it does show that you've passed the driver's course. It does show that you're insured, and if you're pulled over, you show it to a police officer, you are driving with a license. And that was the middle ground we went with. We had a lot of conversations in our caucus, a lot of groups, advocacy groups that were wrapped up in this issue. Scott did a great job of kind of, negotiating some pretty strong feelings. It was not an issue that that I dove into 100% right off the bat, even though, because I recognize that. Listen, you have to make a distinction between people legally and not legally. But I do felt like it made sense, especially from the insurance perspective. You want people to be insured. You have a population that you need to address. And I think this was a good middle ground. I thought Scott did a great job.
I agree
and
with
I voted for it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it because I just don't think if you're here illegally, you should not be here illegally.
And I understand that position.
But having said that, one thing I did like about it is, and I thought this was the most compelling argument Scott Servo made. He said, they're driving anyway. I mean, you're not stopping them from driving. They have to drive. They have to get to the jobs, which is the reason they're here. So they're driving anyway. They don't have insurance. You get in an accident, there's no insurance.
Right.
So at least what this does is, in order to drive and be legit in Virginia, they have to have insurance, which means they're paying taxes, and it is what it is. So I get that. I get that side of the argument. Chap Petersen with us, veteran Democratic State Senator Fairfax. Let's get to my favorite issue: casinos and sports betting.
You had a huge session. That was a session you all did, complete breakthrough on every level.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah, that's probably the right way to say it. Just boom.
Boom. I mean, for somebody like me who has been an advocate of both things for 10 years, in one session, we knocked on their door, one session, we kicked it in and overran the place. So I got your going to the sports book OTB things, Chap. I mean, that's what my father went to the OTB in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, where I grew up. He would go to the corner OTB. But those days are gone, man. People, they want to do it on their phone. They don't want to go to.
They
don't want to go there.
I know, and listen, I lost this battle. I wanted to keep it bricks and mortar, and that got shot down. I mean, I really had nobody except the Colonial Downs that was in favor, and of course they ended up getting their pound of flesh by getting all the historical, all the machines, especially in Woodbridge. So this is one of those bills that it's going to take years to unpack. I have a hard time imagining that all 5 casinos are going to open. They all got to go through local referendum, and obviously they're going to cannibalize each other's operations. So it's probably going to be the first couple past the post that are going to survive. I have a hard time seeing all 5 survive or even open. I wasn't crazy about the historical horse racing in Woodbridge, but they've already approved that by referendum. That may be something that, again, could be something we need to go back and look at in future assemblies. The bottom line was this is something that I voted for the bill. I wasn't crazy about it, but I do think that at some point we had rejected, and we'll see how it turns out. I mean, we're going to a large extent let local governments have this opportunity, and whether or not they avail themselves of it will be up to them.
Well, listen, I know you want your 1970s back. It's gone.
Yeah, I know.
I get it. I mean, you want it back, but it's gone. Number 2 was voting for it. You did the right thing. But again, I mean, what you guys did in the state Senate, again, is a lot of this stuff which is conservative thinking, although you guys are progressives, you push the decision down to local governments where voters in their local districts have control over what they do. So you take these 5 areas, right? The voters have to pass the referendum. If the voters in those areas don't want them, they're not going to pass. That's number 1.
Right.
Second thing is, after it passes, then the various entities, the applicants, operators, have to get an RFP.
Right.
It goes to the city council.
And they've got to make an investment. They've got to make that decision on their own.
Bingo. Exactly. So you push it off on them. And as far as so that's the casino end of it. And I agree with you. I'm not sure we can support 5 casinos. I think we can support some of them, maybe not. Who knows what the number is? We'll have to see what plays out. But as far as the bookmaking is concerned, you guys absolutely did the right thing, Chap, because that money is leaving Virginia. It's going to West Virginia, Dover Downs, offshore. The other thing I liked about it is you carved out Virginia colleges. I thought that was a great compromise, Chap.
Yeah, Yeah, no, and I was not in the mix on that. Obviously, I've talked to the Redskins, and they had their own interest in it. And
Right.
I think the sports betting thing was something I got behind early, and I'm glad we passed that. That's going to happen in all 50 states, in my opinion. That's pretty much a no-brainer. And I did not like having college athletics in there, but I understand, Final Four. I get all that, but I think taking the Virginia schools out of it is good because it just any impropriety it just takes that away.
Chap, it was a good compromise. The other thing they did that people that aren't familiar with this, with betting on a phone, is the big money. I don't do this ever; it's just not my thing. But prop betting is like the whole big thing now.
Right, I know.
Is somebody going to hit the basket? Is somebody going to commit how many fouls? That's like a big thing. I've never bet it one time. I have no interest in it. I do want my 1970s back in that realm. But the reason they cut out that for all colleges is because it's compromising, right?
Right.
And so that
because
makes sense.
Then you truly are putting a student athlete in a situation where they can miss a free throw or bobble a rebound, and somebody makes $50,000, and that's a problem.
Yeah, that's an issue. So you cut that out. So, look, Chap, I think all that makes sense. But while casinos, it'll be a while before they actually happen, except probably for the one that the Pamunkeys will open in the Tidewater area, because that referendum is going to pass. They already have an RFP that the Norfolk City Council signed off on. Other than that, it's going to be a while. But the bookmaking starts in, I think in August, right? It starts immediately.
Yeah, well, we've been studying this for a year, and I think I think you can expect that. You'll see those licenses get issued, and I think there is an application process, but that will start this summer. You could have betting on NFL this fall.
Yep, no doubt. Okay, two more things, and then we got to go.
Yeah, I got to run because I got a business meeting at 9:30. But yes, let's hit it quickly.
Washington Redskins.
Yes.
Where are we with that?
Where are we in terms of rebuilding the team, bringing them to Virginia, new coach? I did meet with the new coach. He's all business. I love it. No politics, all business. I had dinner with him, and we just talked football for 2 hours. I had no interest in politics. It's great.
All right, so tell us about Chap Petersen, team president. Where's it going?
Well, I got to get through. We got through this session. I don't think they're going to name a team president for a while. I think right now they've kind of got a team in place, and Rivera's got his thumbprint on it. And listen, I love the Redskins.
Are you still in the hunt?
You know what? I don't know if I'm in the hunt or not in the hunt. If they asked me to serve in an executive position, of course I'd consider it. But at this point, I've got a job, I got a good business, and certainly got a Senate seat. So we'll see. My main thing is I want to see them get a good tight end, somebody who can get up the field for yardage. And as long as they got that, I'm happy.
How'd you get along with Morrissey?
Oh, great. Listen, Joe and I get along well, and was invited over to his house for a very lovely dinner. Went with a bunch of other senators, and he had an excellent session. He's a good influence in our caucus.
All right, Chap Petersen, got to go to a meeting. We're out of time. I want to thank you for being with us. Thank you so much.
Talk to y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.
John Fredericks Radio Network. Stay with us.